Hello everybody, we are working in Chapter 14. We're going to work through the exercise solutions for the first set of exercises. Before we begin, there's kind of a little bit of gearing up we need to do, and I am making the assumption here that before you're watching this video that you've watched the previous videos and or have read the chapter thoroughly and tried the example problems. The example problems are available, as are some other resources that you will need to do some of your work from the author's website. If you come over to the resources link here on the left, you will see that right at the top of the resources page I have a PDF version of our text, which sometimes can be helpful if you're working electronically, maybe working with a couple of screens. I also have all the bonus chapters, which are bundled with the book, that are only available online typically through the author's website, but I bring them in here because we do use some of these. Additionally, I have a link to the author's website, and right here at the top there's a link that is the source code for examples in the book. Now if you click through to download that, you actually end up getting a zip file, which I've also included here, so you can download, unzip that, and then be able to get some of the assets that you need to get this work done. One of the things you're going to need once you have that folder decompressed, and you can see right here, this is the unzipped version of that file, and these are all the folders within. Some of the exercises here in Chapter 14, we have to pull in images, and to do that you're going to go to this book folder and then to the image folder. And what I did just a little while ago is I copied this whole folder, and I'll go in there so you can see some of the stuff that's in there. All right, but I went and I copied that folder and put it into the folder where I'm doing my work. So I created a folder for myself for fall of 2016, and that's where all the stuff is happening. So I pasted it in, and now it's readily available for import. If you read the chapter, and we just did a little bit of review here in the class, you'll know that there's a couple different ways to pull the images in and then manipulate them, but basically our technique here is going to be that we will create an image object. That image object will sit inside of an image view. The image view will end up sitting inside of some sort of pane, and then on the scene and on the stage. And one of our discussions here was talking about how by encapsulating these things within themselves, you actually have a larger level of control. I like to call it granular control, really, because you have many capabilities for manipulating it. All right, so let's jump over to our text, and I'm going to get to the exercise section here, and I'm kind of doing it in a backwards fashion. So I'm on page 578, and we're right up here at the top, and actually you notice that the author's got a link right here at the top of the exercises. I will assume that the link works. Okay, there it is. Not only did it work, but you see it's like downloading it automatically. So instead of going to my resources page, you could come here. But if I remember right, this version is one compressed file. What that brings down is all the files in one giant folder, as opposed to having it broken down logically. But all the stuff is in there as well, and I'm actually going to cancel this because I already have it. All right, so now we know that you can get it that way as well. So our task here is to write a program that displays 4 images in a grid pane as shown in figure 14.43. So we're going to try to create this. Now you guys recognize these flags, I hope, right? This is Great Britain, England, Canada, China, very good. A lot of people don't know that. And the Communist Republic, no, I'm just kidding. All right, so you guys know what that is. And we should know that those images, and I pulled my folder out of the way here, They're all inside here, and you're going to have to find the right ones. Now there's a whole bunch of stuff in here, but you can see that there's a couple of them that are in various formats and in different sizes. So that's why I'm kind of hovering over the images. I'm investigating my assets before I use them. And that's kind of a smart thing to do, especially if you have multiple versions of the same images. Now, for what we're about to do, we're going to use the GIFs. All right, because those are the ones that are actually more efficient in size. That's a JPEG. This is a GIF. Notice the difference in file size. Oh, I guess the JPEG is smaller. Okay, so strike what I'm thinking, but it's certainly smaller than a bitmap, a little bit smaller. That's going to be our focus. We're going to use the GIF, There's a US GIF in here somewhere. And what was the last one? England? Alright, so apparently it's this one. I thought it appeared here somewhere else. Oh, here we go. UK GIF. Alright, so those are the ones we're going to be using. Now, this is going to be kind of a new thing for you inside of Eclipse, because we've never used images because we were never working with graphical programs. So it's kind of a, I think kind of an exciting thing to do, especially if it's brand new for you. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a new Java project. I'm going to call it exercise 14. Actually what I'm going to do is I'll just call it chapter 14 examples, or exercises. All right. And as is our typical fashion, I'm going to go ahead in the source folder and create a new class file. And I think an appropriate name would be exercise 14-1 underscore, whatever you prefer. I'll go ahead and put the public static void main in there. What is it that I'm missing that it's not letting me click? I'm posing this question to the class if you guys are wondering. The dash is bad? Yeah, it doesn't like the dash. What's that? You can use an underscore. Do you guys have any thoughts as to why you might not be able to do that? Yeah, it might interpret it incorrectly, but I don't understand why. Honestly, I think it's kind of a silly convention, but that's just what you do. That's a just because. Maybe there's something under the hood that I'm not aware of that I never read about or something, but use an underscore. All right, so we have our new project here, and we're going to kind of get into this pattern. Remember, and I think I told you guys about this last time, where you're going to see that you're going to be doing stuff like this, where you're going to have the scene, the stage with the title, and set the scene and show all that. So you're going to get into this habit of just copying that. Say again? Sort of. That's just the conventions they use here. But in order to be able to show this stuff, we're ultimately going to have to add it. So we'll keep that in our head. We'll go back to our exercise here. And the first thing we're going to want to think about is the type of construct that we're going to put this into. Now, if you remember from your readings all the different types of panes that exist, and there's several, does anybody have a suggestion as to which pane format we should use? Somebody says border pane. John says grid pane. All right, I'm going to go with what John thinks, because I think, frankly, that's the most efficient. The way that a grid pane works is it basically is kind of like you'll think of like a table with columns and rows, where a border pane has a little bit different structure but can be handy. And honestly, you could use it for this, but the layout wouldn't be as clean. So I am going to go with the grid pane. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start get some of these standard things put in here. First of all, I'm going to get rid of that inside the main. We know that when we do the main, we're going to do a launch, right? You guys remember what goes after it? Args. Lowercase, uppercase, does it matter? Lowercase. All right. Oh, wrong place for semicolon. And that's going to work. It's underlining it. Well, let's see what it says. The method launch string undefined for type. Well, we don't have anything to launch yet. Oh, we have to do imports. Because launch is part of the application class. And this is exactly where I'm leading you. So one thing that we didn't put in, as we've done in the previous examples, is we need to add extends application, because that's what gives us all the GUI capabilities. All right? So once I add that in, oops, I thought I hit paste. There we go. You notice how it very quickly added the Java FX application class. So now that it's there for us, and the error went away. Let's go ahead and save it. Now it's throwing another error here. It says, the type exercise 14.1 must implement the inherited abstract method application start stage. And we know that's part of our standard application structure, because that's what we did here, right? So what I'm showing you is that even though you think you're getting errors here, and you are, you can actually kind of leverage that into your workflow with a product like Eclipse. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually either make it abstract or add unimplemented methods. So you see what it did? It created the start method with the override. Now all the examples in the book that we're working with are taking this main method and throwing it at the bottom, and I'm going to stick with that convention, so I'm just going to drag it down here and place it, because that's kind of like, you know, it just makes it go at the end, not a big deal. All right, so now we have our start method, we have the override in place. Notice that it automatically does what when we use this approach? It throws an exception. What's an exception? Yeah, it's basically some sort of an error relative to trying to perform some action. Now, I'm actually going to remove this for now, because it's not really critical that we have that in place. But when you're doing a lot of input stuff and you know, and you're moving data around, sometimes you need that there to keep, you know, keep it basically from crashing. So you can leave it if you want. You can take it out if you want. I'm going to take it out because I'm not doing a section on exceptions right now. All right, so we already said that we'll probably start with a grid pane. So I'm going to just declare a new object of grid pane. What should we call it? Pane. Let's call it pane. That's what the book does. It's not really a bad convention. And that is going to be creating a new grid pane. I'm not passing any parameters to it. I'm just kind of creating it. Notice it's underlined in red. So what can I do? I can hover and I can do the import. You got to be really careful though, because you see how many different options are available. Many. And the first one is the one that we want. So that's pretty easy. The other approach you can take, I'm trying to leverage this here, is if you have an underline and you're at the end of the word and you do control space, you see what happens? It's a different interface, But it also is recognizing that, hey, we got some sort of a object going on here and we're not sure what to do with it. You probably need a library. So doing the control space approach will invoke this and just show you the libraries as opposed to all the different options, which in a lot of cases aren't going to be appropriate. What I'm trying to tell you here is all these weird import statements at the top. You will get to memorize some of them, but you'll never memorize all of them. You kind of let the tool help to guide you. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and add that in. All right, now before I start pumping stuff into the panes, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start having a couple of settings I'm going to do. So for example, and you'll see this in our examples in the text, I'm going to do a set in alignment, and I'm going to do a position center. Notice that just by adding that in to the method, it automatically threw in the class for it. See that? The other thing I'm going to add in is I'm going to do a little bit, kind of a little variant on the stuff that we were just looking at in the chapter. I'm going to set an H gap, kind of not a dissimilar approach. I'm basically creating space between the object. So I'm putting 5 pixels in between stuff horizontally. So, and just to be clear here, we got a grid pane, right? The grid pane itself, I mean, it's like rows and columns, right? So the grid pane itself, each of the little panes inside the grid are going to have 5 pixels of space between the objects horizontally. And then we're also going to do the same vertically. So once again, I'm going to do pane, set, vgap, and let's put in 5 again. That seems to work. The IntelliSense does not work exactly like Visual Studio does, if you guys are comfortable with that. This IntelliSense has its own quirks, and maybe you picked up on some of those quirks when you were working in Java 1 if you use the tool at all. But here in Eclipse, it can really help your workflow once you get comfortable with what it does. All right, the other thing that we're going to need to do, and I'm going to start creating our image views now. I'm going to do them one at a time. We know we have to pull in 4 different flags, so we're going to need 4 image views. And I'm going to instantiate the first one, and I don't know, let's just call it image, notice not a capital I, image view 1. Does that work? And what we're going to instantiate is a new image view. And I'm going to actually directly place the image right into the image view. If I was to manipulate the image multiple times, so let's just give a hypothetical here. If I wanted to put the American flag in this application 20 times, it would make more sense for me to instantiate an image that contains the flag and then replicate that or use that image multiple times. In this case, I'm going to use it once, so I really don't need to do that. And hopefully that helps to clarify some of the things we were just talking about lecture-wise. All right, so here they're giving us a path. It's image, and they're putting uk.gif. Or should we do America first? All right, America first. But if you, that's not how it is in the image in the book, right? No. But we're Americans, darn it, so. Well, most of us are, right? Okay, anyhow, I put it in, and then it's thrown an error right away. It says image view cannot be resolved to a type. Oh. Yeah, we need the clicks. So which one do we choose? Right. So remember, this provides all these different fixes. the top one is the one we want. But I just want to show you that approach again. If you see the underline, just click at the end of the object name, control, hold down control, press space, and then it focuses down just to libraries. And then look at the options and just take a quick look at them. We know we're not working in Swing, right? You can see it says Swing there. And we're not using Image View Builder. We're just using Image View, so that is the right choice. Underline has gone away. Good so far, everybody? All right, let's go ahead and save our work. Now, here's the curiosity I have. Where the heck are the images? We put them in our folder, right? You saw me put them in my folder? Yeah, I gotta import that folder. So where do I put it? How do I import it? We can do it a couple different ways. We can and should be able to drag drop, I think. All right, so here's my image folder. But it actually sits outside of the project, but does that really matter? It actually sits as an independent object. So I'm going to grab that image folder and I'm just going to pull it into the default package. And notice it says copy files and folders, link to files and folders, or link to and recreate folder structure with virtual folders. You can do, any one of those you want. In terms of what happens when you compile the program, the images, whether they're linked to or included in the folder, they will get compiled into the program. So you're not going to have an application where it's going to have a separate folder for images. Although you could, if that's what you choose. You see the difference there? So you actually kind of have a rich set of possibilities, and the choice that you make comes down to a lot of different factors. How are you using those images? Are you using them once? Are you using them multiple times? Are you using so many images that you need to have the image files sitting there? There's many considerations. But for right now, I'm going to just say copy files and folders, and I suggest that you do the same. Why wouldn't you save it to the bin folder? That's a good question, Cindy Lou. Okay. Right, but we're pulling it into the Chapter 14 exercises, where we're going to put all our Chapter 14 exercises. No. And that's because of where we're going to place it. So this sits on a level that's equivalent with the root of where the project is. Does that make any sense? Okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying. In this case, we probably won't be using it. In fact, I know we won't be using it for other chapters. So, I guess it's kind of like the voice of experience coming in. And then also take a look at like the syntax that goes with it. Now, I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to recreate this line 3 more times, obviously. And we know from the name of the files, and we can find them here. So the ones that we're looking for are China GIF. Let's just do that. Doesn't matter what order we do. There's China. We got the US. We got the UK. And what's Canada? Just CA. Yep, CA. All right. Now we're going to have a little bit of a discussion here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring up Excel really quick to kind of aid in that discussion. So in Excel, I'm going to zoom in significantly. I'm just going to highlight these boxes here. And I want to kind of just demonstrate how a grid pane works. All right, we're going to end up forming a grid. The grid technically doesn't really have a definition in terms of like how many rows and columns we're using. They will be basically instantiated by the fact that we're pushing something into them. All right. So the way that a grid pane works, we need a grid pane that does 4 positions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw borders around it here in Excel. So that's our grid pane. And then each one of the columns has a 0. That's the first column. Second column is a 1. Right? They're numbered. Like in Excel, we do ABC, and we do 1, 2, 3. But grid panes, computer programming, always starts with 1, and they always use numbers. All right. So what we're doing here is we're basically defining the position. So this box is 0, 0. This next one is what? 1, 0, says Chris. And so then this would be 0, 1, and 1, 1. Okay, so now why is that important? Basically, that's important because it helps us to position the stuff so we know what we're putting where. And the next set of commands that we're going to type into the program are going to be positioning those things. So what we're going to do is we're once again going to use the pane object that we created, and we are going to add, because that's kind of a thing you have to do, you got to add your stuff in, and we're going to do image, see how it's highlighted there, image view 1, and now it wants the position. So it's a column index. How about 0? You see how, right, column comes first and then the row. So did we make any mistakes? Columns first and then the row. So this is backwards. Okay, very good. Good catch. So then this one becomes 0, 1, and well, that one stays the same, right? Okay. So we'll do 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1. Got that? Of course you do. And once again, we can do a little efficiency here. We can just paste that 4 times, and then we can refer to our cheat sheet here. Yeah, it's a spreadsheet, right? So it's a cheat sheet. 1, 0. All right, 0, 1. Then of course 1, 1. Now I'm already doing a separate order, so you guys should probably make it just like how it is in the book. Oh, you see what I did here? Those need to be changed too. If it wasn't for the underlining, I'd probably miss it until I went to try to run it, you know? All right, so now we have, basically we've completed the work, and now we need to pump everything into the scene and the stage. So I'm going to go back to this other application that I have here, and I know that I'll have to have at least these lines in there. So I'm going to copy those and bring it back over. Then right down here at the bottom, I'm going to paste the stuff in. And of course, I'm going to have to change this. What I'm going to put for a title, of course, is I'm going to put in exercise 14-1. Now I'm setting a scene And this one was set up for that previous project, so I'm gonna blow away all the stuff inside of it. And I'm just simply, what am I gonna put on my scene? The pane, right, which is the grid pane, which holds all the stuff. All right, I'm gonna leave the comments in there, they're fine. I'm not getting any underlines. That's a good thing. No little error things in the margins or anything like that. Everything seems to be in order. Hypothetically, my syntax is good. So I'm going to go ahead and save my work. I'm doing a Control S. And then I'm going to go ahead and try to execute. And actually, I should probably keep the console window open to see if it throws any errors. And I'm being pretty confident. I think it's going to work. Yay! Apparently the Canada flag is a little bit bigger than the others, right? And now everybody succeeded? Okay.
I'm just having trouble locating the image file. That's all.
Okay, Nick, hold that thought. I'm going to pause the video here and I'll come and help you, okay? All right, we went ahead here in class and we solved everybody's little issues and successfully got everybody running the program. It seemed like the biggest catch that most people were having is making sure that the images were part of the project correctly. And I think the important distinction to make is just because the images are in a folder that seemingly is inside your project, whether it's in the source folder or the bin folder or whatever, that doesn't mean it's part of the project. It has to be brought into the Package Explorer here and dropped into the package in this fashion to be linked to the project. And you can see how it becomes an object, basically, or really an asset within the project is really the better way to say it. All right, so we're going to create a new program. So I'm going to right-click on the default package. I'm going to say New Class. And the next exercise is exercise 14.2. Throw in a main method. All right, so we got this part. We know we need to extends application. Let's just do that right away. And control space here. Got our import. And what is this error? What is it telling us that we need? We need a start. Right, so we need the start method. Once again, I'm going to be in the habit here of moving the main method to the bottom, as I did last time. We'll just stick with that habit. That means we can get rid of some of this extra space here. And I'm going to leave the throws exception in there. We're not doing anything with it at this point, but I'm leaving it in there. And probably a really good thing to do is grab some of this stuff. We're just going to get it in place right away, because these lines we're going to probably have in every single graphical program that we do. We might change a couple of things, but it won't be much. And I'm going to just put that at the bottom of the start method. And this is going to be exercise 14.2. Now we haven't created a pane yet, so that's underlined, whatever. We don't know what we're going to call it yet or what kind of pane we're going to use. Although I have an anticipation of what kind of pane we're going to use. Does anybody have a guess? I think grid is a pretty obvious choice here. All right. I'm going to actually start, instead of creating the grid pane that we're obviously going to use here, I'm going to start by importing the images. So I'm going to do an image, and you're going to see here, because last time we used an image view, right? All right. There's method to my madness here. So I'm going to do image X. Guess what's going in that one? And I probably need to validate what it's called. I'm hoping it's called X and O. Oh, yep, there's an X and there's an O. So I can actually collapse that. So we know it's image slash X dot GIF. It was a GIF, right? And then we're basically going to repeat this structure, and then we're going to call it image O. It's an O, right? Yep, it's an O. And O GIF. We do need to bring in the library for image, so control space here. AWT, first one. Gotta be careful here. No. JavaFX. That's the part we're working on, so that's what I'm pulling in. All right. Now you're going to ask, why this time am I using an image class where I didn't last time? The difference is last time I only used each image once. Here I'm going to use it over and over again, so it makes sense to create it as an object, right? Well, yeah, I mean, because we're replicating it. So basically it's just more memory efficient because we're, not, recreating an object. We're just pulling one that's already there. All right, the other thing I'm going to do is, it makes sense, tic-tac-toe is going to be in a grid pane. So we'll do grid pane. Let's just call it pane again, because that way we don't have to change the stuff at the bottom. And we'll do new grid pane, and nothing inside there. Once again, let's pull in a library. This time I'm going to do it with the hover approach, JavaFX scene layout. We got it up top now. We can also probably copy a couple of things from here. In fact, I think all of these settings will work just fine. We want the image to be centered inside whatever object it's in. We also want a little bit of space between them. We don't want them touching. So that works for me. But now comes the challenge. I'm going to do a Control S to save. I'm going to jump over to our text if I can find it on my screen here. And now there's a little bit of a challenge here. It's easy to grab an image and put it in a pane, right? But now we're going to have it randomize what goes in. It says, write a program that displays a tic-tac-toe board as shown. A cell may be an X or a 0 or empty. What to display at each cell is randomly decided. Uh-oh. That should have you leafing through the book or Googling, right? We did some random number stuff before. Okay. And the library that does that is called math.random. And whenever you use math.random, you usually multiply it by a number that then will generate a certain number of characters. So if the possibilities are X, 0, or nothing, how many times, what do we need to multiply it by? 3. Okay. And it's going to be an integer, so that's going to be an important component. Now, what I'm going to do here is I have it typed up on my other screen here, and I'm going to pull it into Eclipse, and in the form of a comment, I'm going to paste it in so you can see the syntax. Okay, and remember, because we're generating integers, we have to add this to the front of it, but this is the syntax for it. Now, that is going to generate a random number with the values of 0, 1, or 2. Right? All right. Then when it's generated, it's going to need to go somewhere. So what I would typically do in this circumstance, obviously it has to be an integer. I don't know, It's the first thing that comes to mind. So that somehow is going to be part of it. Now what we need to think about, this is kind of challenging your old Java programming skills. And I'm going to go back to my Excel spreadsheet here once again. And basically what we're going to do, and I don't know if Excel will do this or not, but we'll find out. Come on, Excel. Okay. Apparently it doesn't want to go both directions at the same time. Isn't that slick? Excel is an awesome piece of software, folks. It is arguably the coolest Office product. Now, and what am I doing now? I'm trying to make it look as nice as possible. Totally not necessary. That's what happens when you're a geek. Oops. And really, you know, for all intents and purposes, I can get rid of the reference numbers because I think you guys get it. So are these numbers right? They are. No. We know these are right. Yeah. That one was right already? I think what threw it off is that this one didn't have a space. Is this one right?
No, that's 2-1.
Okay. 2-1. All right. And then 2-2. Thank you, Nick from Cyberspace. You speak for all students. Because yours is the only voice that really clearly comes into the recording. So, and actually, all the students listening to the recording and hearing the voice from Cyberspace, you could be in Cyberspace joining us as well. I'm just saying. All right, so this is our grid with all the numbers. So what we need to do is we need a way to traverse this grid. So you could think of this grid as a series of arrays, right? So if I was to traverse an array structure and put content into it, what do I need to do? What would be a handy construct? A loop, maybe? Right? So hypothetically, I could have a loop that traverses each column, right? For I equals 0, as long as I is less than 3, I plus plus, right? So basically what we're doing is we're going through each one, and then for each time we loop through, we're also looping 3 times. So it sounds like a loop inside a loop. Right? Does that sound familiar? Refreshing those Java cobwebs, you know, shaking them loose. All right, here's our little data model. I'm going to comment this out and kind of push it aside because we know that at some point we're going to need a random number generator to kind of get this going. But we know that we're going to loop. I'm a fan of the for loop in this circumstance. We're going to set an integer as a counter, and we'll set it, oops, not int I equal to 0. And it makes sense to match up with the column and row numbers, right? And we're going to say as long as I is less than 3, this loop will operate, and then we'll do an I plus plus. And let's open up some curly brackets here, close them right away. And I know I'm going to put a bunch of stuff in there, but I know the first thing I'm going to do additionally, because we already figured out we're going to do a loop inside of a loop, We didn't really do any pseudo coding on this, but this is what we're doing, because I assume you guys are all on board with me here. And then we're just going to basically copy this syntax, but instead of using I, we'll use J. Why? Because that's what programmers do. You know what the I stands for? Index value. All right. Once again, we're going to do curlies. Once again, we'll create a little space. And once again, I'm going to get rid of some space. And now we got to do some work here. So we traverse the loop 3 times for each of 3 times. Each one of those times, we need to get a random number. Here's where we can pull our code in. So I can pull in my random number generator, and I'm going to place it right here. Now I'm going to end up with a value, right? 0, 1, or 2. And then based on that value, I'm going to do something. So it sounds to me like I need some sort of a conditional statement where I'm going to say if status is equivalent. So should we try the first value? 0. Okay. Another set of curlies. Then what? Okay. Pane add. You're right on target there. And one thing you can do is you can say, we can instantiate right here. And here's where I'm going to get rid of all this junk. And actually, that was not a smart idea. Because we still need the column and rows. So, but now we're typing manually. So we're going to do a new image view at this point. Right? And what do we put inside of an image view? Yeah. And we'll start with X because that's the first one we created. So we'll do image, do a capital X. Okay, image X. And then, now the question is, we know we're going to use I and J, but which is which? Doesn't matter. Whether we loop, and my point is, whether we loop this way or that way, it doesn't, as long as we get all the squares. Yeah. Otherwise, it would. You're absolutely right. If it was a different number of rows and columns, it would matter. But thank God it's tic-tac-toe and not thermonuclear warfare. Okay, young people don't get that joke. You guys ever see War Games? That's like a mandatory must-watch for computer geeks. You guys don't. If you ever see that movie, the whole point is they get this computer that controls all the nuclear weapons to play tic-tac-toe, which is an unwinnable scenario. So, unless you're a parent and you let your child win. All right. So the one scenario is if it's 0, we're going to put in an X. Else, right? Else if. Else if. Then what? Status. What would be the next scenario? 1. More curlies. And can we just copy this? Sure can. We need to make any adjustments to it. Image O. Do we need to change the J and the I? No. We need it to be the same. Now the other thing is, what would happen if it's not 0 or 1? Nothing, right? That's the other scenario. So we don't have to put in a scenario for 2 because it's just going to happen automatically. Now the next question is, do I need anything else? Aside from fixing those red underlines. Yep, you're right. Just the scene and the stage stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and add the library here to correct the image view. And believe it or not, folks, we're done. As soon as you start putting in like programming logic, like loops and all that kind of stuff, It seems like it gets really hairy. The truth is it's actually pretty simple.
What library do you use?
The one for image view. And Nick, our voice from cyberspace, I just let Eclipse choose it for me, basically. So I just hovered. Actually, I did control space, but here it is right here. And we are working with Java FX. You're welcome. One last thing we need is we need to have it launch. And we're all set to run. Everybody save their work. Cross your fingers. Let's run it again. Why am I running it again? Make sure it's truly random. So I'm running it over and over and over again. Do you guys also notice that the previous versions aren't actually closing? They're all still open. They're layering on top of each other, which is why you're not seeing them. But they're all open. All right, folks, that's all we have time for tonight, unfortunately. So you'll be on your own to work on the rest of them. And the first set of exercises is due sometime this weekend, and the next set will be due the following weekend. So when we come back next week, those of you that are face-to-face, once again, I expect that you guys will have read the chapter, tried the examples, watched the videos if you feel so compelled, and are ready to code. All right? And anybody listening to this online, you're welcome to join us just like Nick does, and you can be the voice in cyberspace too. All right, have a good night, you guys.